So Mehdi Hassan, he's been doing phenomenal work, and I know that there is a documentary coming out by Zateo that is about really just like the way that soldiers are for the IDF rationalize their genocidal views. I've seen the trailer; it's disturbing. So they're doing just great work trying to shed light on this. And he had presidential candidate Dean Phillips on his program. You know, the guy who Venmo'd a magician in Louisiana to like $100 to make that AI fake robocall of Biden telling New Hampshire voters not to come to the polls. That guy, what a loser. I mean, he could barely, he was running as the I'm Biden but young candidate and no one even cared. But, you know, he was a member of Congress, Democrat, rich, very rich politician as well. Mehdi Hassan had him on his program and he asked him about the operation that Israel conducted to free 4 Israeli hostages, which I'm so happy that they're okay, but we know that they could have been released in the ceasefire, but that would have gotten away, and the dozens of others, by the way, would have been released in the ceasefire if Israel were to accept it, but that would have gotten in the way of what they want to do, which is mow down and kill as many Palestinians as they can. 270 were killed in this massacre. And Mehdi asked Dean Phillips about this.
The other week, we saw 4 Israeli hostages rescued from inside of Gaza by an Israeli military and police operation, returned to their families. A very good thing. President Biden, Secretary of State Blinken, National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan, all reacted with praise, with celebration. None of them, in their initial responses, had a single word to say about the over 200 Palestinians reportedly killed, over 700 injured in that rescue operation, many of them innocent women and children. A lot of people have been asking this for the last 8-9 months. I'm sure you hear it in your constituency. Do Palestinian lives just not matter to the modern Democratic Party?
Oh, I think that's a horrifying statement. Let me acknowledge let me acknowledge the 38,000 human beings killed in Gaza, the 1,200 Israelis, but particularly the innocents. To me, it's all the same. They're human beings. I'm appalled and disgusted. First of all, there are Americans being held hostage. Let me change the lens for a moment. I believe, if anything, it has been the United States and the Biden administration should have been the foremost responsibility to extract our hostages, our nationals. I think there are 6 or 7 still, we don't know even if they're alive. So the question is, would we undertake an effort to extract American hostages, 2, 3, 4, 7, if we knew 200 civilians would be killed in the process?
What's the answer?
Boy, that's a tough, that's a tough question. That's a tough question. If you're the leader of a country, absolutely.
You killed 200 people to save 6.
Mehdi, look at our, first of all, I'm the son of I'm a Gold Star son. I lost my dad in Vietnam. One of the most despicable, I think, wars of the United States has ever prosecuted. We've killed hundreds of thousands of innocent people over the years. We continue to. Look what we did in Japan to end a war. These are philosophical questions that most Americans would never want to be faced with.
But you're a member of Congress, right?
I'm a member of Congress.
You wanted to be president.
Yes.
So let me ask you the straight up question.
Let me answer your question.
Please.
I believe, as the President of the United States, his or her obligation should always be the safety and security of Americans first. It does not mean dismissing other humanity. But in the case of hostages, when it comes to this, and we've tried this before, and we've seen carnage. The fact of the matter is, I think we should extract. And by the way, if that means there are civilian deaths as a result, unfortunately, that's, I think, a cost.
Well, the cost implies there's no other choice. We, of course, know that there was another way to get the hostages out.
I have empathy.
No, well, hold on. There's another way to get the hostages out. We got over 100 hostages out in a deal in November. You could have got Benjamin Netanyahu blocking another deal. But just I want to be very specific. In your view, is killing 274 Palestinians, including many children, an acceptable price to pay for the freeing of 4 Israelis?
Like I said, I don't. This you want a clear answer, and you want to make this black and white.
Is it an acceptable price to pay?
It's an unacceptable price, but I think it's a price that has to be paid.
Wow. So, if you're saying that to get free people from the clutches of horrible captivity, hostages, people possibly being abused in captivity, to free them, you have to pay a price, right? It's a horrible price. Does that ratio work the other way? How many Israelis can Palestinians kill in order to free Palestinian detainees who are currently being tortured in Israeli captivity, some of them being raped to death, according to the New York Times last week? Can they kill 200 Israelis? Hold on, let me finish the question.
No,
can they kill 200 Israelis to free 4 Palestinians who are being tortured in an Israeli prison?
I think it's a question that I'm sure Palestinians are asking the same way as Israelis.
No. You answered it for Israel. I would like you to answer it in reverse.
Let me just clarify something you just said. You said Palestinian prisoners are being raped to death by Israeli soldiers?
Yes, this is a report in the New York Times last week.
Okay. I don't believe that to be true. Nonetheless, the question...
A 41-year-old detainee said the interrogators made me sit on something like a hot metal stick and it felt like fire. He said another detainee died after they put the electric stick up his anus.
No, it's repulsive.
This is an Israeli dungeon that CNN and New York Times have both reported on. UN investigators. So to free people from that prison, can you kill lots of innocent people according to the logic of the raid in Gaza?
What I'm trying to say is, if you represent the Palestinian people, you represent the Israeli people, we look at this quite differently. I don't want to say...
I know you do, which is why I'm asking the question.
Why can't he just say, look, the Hamas made a tough decision?
Well...
I understand that you see it differently. A lot of people watching at home say, why? Why aren't all lives equal?
They should be.
But they're not.
Good job, Mehdi Hassan, who also was so quick on the draw with the quote from the New York Times.
How did that escape the notice of a guy running for president? He literally didn't know that was established in the New York Times.
I really do think that we have very little understanding of how in a bubble these folks are. I mean, the level of, like, even President Biden, like, what he receives in terms of news clippings or what he's reading, why they talk about TikTok as like this mythical thing that the Chinese government and that Hamas is using to brainwash kids is because they're not seeing the same images all the time. Now, I think they understand what they're doing, right? Well, it's the cost of supporting Israel, the only democracy in the Middle East, our strategic partner. But they also are getting their news from a very, very, very small sliver of people.
Yeah, it's both end. I mean, like we said, the issue is as they start putting civilian fascists instead of military leaders in front of in charge of the occupied territories, that demographic problem becomes even more urgent, because are you going to start drawing your borders around the territory you occupied and counting those people as part of your demographic? And so right now, what they're doing is trying to make it as hopeless so as many Palestinians die or leave as they can, because they are going to have Gaza, and they want as few Palestinians messing up the numbers as they can.
Yeah, Brookings actually did a survey of academics. I'm sending this over the chat, Bradley, if you could just pull this up. Don't listen to politicians on this. I mean, really, this is important. Listen to Middle East scholars and historians who you can listen to every human rights group in the world and they'll all say this is apartheid, this is unconscionable, these are war crimes, Israel's starving people to death deliberately, they're killing civilians, aid workers on purpose, whatever, right? All the aid organizations understand that that's true. And then you just look at scholars, people who don't have an agenda here to promote our, quote, ally, as if I'm supposed to give a shit about that. What do you think Israel's primary goal in Gaza is? Brookings Foreign Policy asked these Middle East scholars here. The overwhelming majority response: make Gaza uninhabitable so as to force the Palestinians out.
Yep.
Out. I mean, and then 15% destroy Hamas, 15% to keep the Israeli government in power, which, like, that's also...
That's the lib version of it, but again, number one needs way more emphasis as opposed to this is just Bibi holding on for his power, because who really cares about who's at the top? Like,
but the second question could also be like the secondary goal is to make Gaza uninhabitable. So, you know, only 15% say that it's to destroy Hamas.
6% say sustain occupation of Gaza and its population. Oh, what occupation? Some people would say. What do you mean sustain an occupation? People say Gaza isn't occupied because Israel supposedly left. We're told by morons.
So anyway, great job as always by Mehdi.
And I just wanted to add briefly that this might be a little bit of a far-flung comparison, but it slightly reminded me of sort of sometimes how Republican lawmakers will react when really hard pressed on unwillingness to act on banning assault weapons or things like that in the wake of mass shootings by essentially saying, I think Matt Gaetz may have been the only one who said this as bluntly,
right,
but kind of saying basically, this is the cost of freedom. That like these types of events are the cost of our Second Amendment rights being upheld, of us having unfettered access to these weapons of war. Dean Phillips in a similar scenario is basically saying, to uphold what I think is necessary to maintain this offensive, as well as release hostages in the way that you know is presented or at least rationalized within himself, the cost, however unspeakable, however you can emotionalize it or sentimentalize it by saying it's reprehensible.
Yeah.
I won't take action upon it because it's necessary to do what I think needs to be done. Mm-hmm. And if that means 272 Palestinian lives for 4 hostages, that's the ratio I need to be comfortable with, even if it makes me upset.
I mean, the truth is the Palestinian matters do matter to democratic Zionists, and they matter in the sense that there's too many of them in Gaza and the West Bank.
Yeah.
And so when you see like 4 hostages freed and almost 300 Palestinians killed, Zionists in charge of killing people over there right now are fine with that second number getting out as much as they are the first one. And I'll just put this up, Bradley. This is on Israeli TV, and we'll mention the subtitles a little bit, but it's pretty obvious the message here. A woman from the families of Israeli captives talking about how only a deal will save the hostages, and she uses a pretty I think evocative visual metaphor here, and we'll just read this out. This is a way to illustrate what we were thinking, what we are going through and what we are thinking. So I want to show you for a moment. Here are there are 7 balls. This is the number they managed to bring back in the deal. Hostages. This is the number they managed to bring back in the rescue. Do you want to see how many managed to bring back in the deal that returned the hostage deal? 110 people they managed to bring back in the hostage deal. And I demand, I say to everyone who hears me, only a deal will bring all the hostages home. Military operations can bring back 1 person or 2. It's not enough for us. We want everyone home. We are tired of risking the lives of the fighters and the lives of the hostages. Only a deal can bring everyone back home safely. And, you know, as we said, like, obviously not a word there about Palestinians being killed there, but it is important to nonetheless point out that these people care more about their fellow Israelis than about killing Palestinians, but their government does not. Their government does not care about the hostages except as a pretext to try to ethnically cleanse Gaza. And it's horrifying to see people stuck in that, TV begging their president to like stop it and, you know, do what has been proven to bring people home safely, which is a hostage transfer, and which could have been done on October 8th. And the reason I say that is because Anthony Blinken tweeted it out and said we should do a hostage transfer and a ceasefire, and so many more of those hostages, if that's all you cared about, would be alive now if that was done, and not to mention all the Palestinians who would be freed from captivity.
Hey folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.